Hi, welcome to Infographics, presented by me, Tara Graves, for the 21st Century Learning Division. The webinar objectives are as follows. Identify what is meant by an infographic, understand how to use infographics, identify several tools for creating infographics, explore various resources for finding infographics, and motivate you to explore infographics more in depth. Our guiding framework is what we call the 6 dimensions of 21st century learning environments. And we have adapted the Microsoft Innovative Teaching and Learning Research and their learning activity rubrics to create this guide. The 6 dimensions are across the bottom in the arrows. So we have collaboration, knowledge construction, real-world problem solving and innovation, use of technology for learning, self-regulation, and skilled communication. And how we use this is as a guide while we're planning learning activities or parts of your lesson plans. And let's say you're wanting to focus on communication in a learning activity. In order to move that activity more toward a student-centered environment, which is up here, or a more student-centered focus, you need to go through each of these steps. So the first one says, the activity requires extended or multimodal communication. And as you analyze the learning activity, you need to see if it does that. If it does, you can move on to the next box. Students must provide supporting evidence or communicate to a particular audience. If you look at your learning activity and say, well, yes, it does require them to do that, then you move up to the final box where it says they must provide supporting evidence and communicate to a particular audience. So as you're going through, and if you want more information on each of these criteria, there will be a link you can follow to the full text of the learning activity rubrics. Okay, so what are they? What are infographics? Well, we have info and graphic. So those of you that are linguists out there, we know that info is information and graphic is some kind of a visual of some sort, a picture. And so it's basically putting together information with an image. So if you look here, visual design plus content, but plus knowledge equals an infographic. Here's another infographic on what is an infographic. Data-rich visualization of a story or thesis, a tool to educate and inform, and a way to build brand awareness and inbound links at half the cost of standard online marketing campaigns. Lots of people advertise, lots of businesses, companies advertise using infographics, partly because it is so visually appealing and interesting that people want to look at it and see what it's all about. And you've probably seen infographics in different magazines, on signs, just about everywhere. They are very effective at getting a message across in a short amount of time. Okay, so this is a great little video I found that explains very simply what infographics are, and also it gives a really good example at the end. And the topic itself is kind of upsetting, but it is enlightening. It actually, I didn't really realize that was the case, and you'll understand what I mean when you watch it. So go ahead and watch the video and then return to the webinar. So pretty powerful. And that, again, that just illustrates my point on how effective they are at conveying information. Now, if you would have had students read text about modern day slavery, it might not have as much of an impact as that infographic does. So again, what is it? It's a visual explanation that helps you more easily understand, find, or do something. It's a visual, and when necessary, integrates words and pictures in a fluid, dynamic way. It stands alone and is completely self-explanatory. It reveals information that was formerly hidden or submerged. It makes possible faster, more consistent understanding, and it's universally understandable. That's what I really like about infographics for using them in the classroom, is because they are interesting, much more interesting than a big page of text in a textbook. It gets kids engaged, and the visuals also help us to remember the things that we see and associating with the information and the image together. So why should you use them? And thinking mostly about why it's so appealing to the brain. I'm going to click on here and show you this one. This one's an interesting one because it actually has animation, but then when the video stops, you can go click on the link and see it more close up and look at it at your own pace. So 13 reasons why your brain craves infographics. This is an amazing piece of information. Okay, so this picture versus this text. So it's a nice way to compile information and data so that the reader or the audience of this particular piece of communication doesn't get overwhelmed. Also think about your ELL students. And our brain just loves them. Look at that. I love how this times it. And then it has the sources. Okay, so come back to the webinar when you're finished looking at that, and we'll continue. And if you're not convinced yet, look at this page of text. Would you rather look at that or this infographic? Same content, different means of delivering it. There's still quite a bit of text on here, but just because it has the images, it's much more interesting to look at and read. All right, so let's take a look at more reasons why you should use them. If you run a blog or a website that you want to display visually engaging information and grab the attentions of your readers, you might want to use that. You'll want to grab the attention of your students every day. It helps you boil down information and content into key concepts that can then lead to more in-depth learning. If you want to look at helping students understand concepts by analyzing, digesting, and then remixing that information into an elegant infographic, that'd be a great way to have them study for a test, because they have to be very selective about the information they put in writing and about the information that they are finding graphics for or creating graphics for. It really is a higher level thinking than just doing a study guide or making flashcards or something. And if you want to get students engaged in doing new types of projects, instead of a book report, have them make their own infographic about their book or topic. Present them with a list of useful tools, or try some out yourself and then just use one of them. And you'll see some tools as we go along. But it's very engaging for everyone, not just adults. If you go onto this link here, you'll see a lot of tools that you can explore during the exploration part of the class. Still more reasons. It's not an ordinary bar chart or a flow chart, but it is more of a union of creative design and vital information. With infographics, information is presented with more appeal, which makes it more effective than mere words and text. The creative use of colors, lines, and shapes makes it unique. Every infographic is different from another infographic because each one is made with a different design. You can easily distinguish one from the others. Infographics are not mere works of art, but there is more to that. The information it tries to deliver to the people are more vital than the colors that you see in it. You could be impressed by how it is being presented, but you will actually be more impressed by the kind of information you will get from them. For sure, after reading it and understanding it, you will be thankful that infographics was conceptualized. With its appealing designs, your attention will really be caught by infographics. You would be curious about what the lines are, the charts are, and what the graphs are for. There could even be images in it that immediately make you want to learn more. Once you see it on the computer or printed on paper, you surely want to look closer. So they do grab your attention. Since information is simplified, you will find it easier to understand infographics. If you are glad that data is well presented in graphs and charts, you will surely be happier to see them in a well-designed image. Everything you would ask for is already in one image. You won't have to break your brain trying to understand long pages of data and numbers, because you can easily get the idea with a single glance at an infographic. Complex information will certainly bore you. Who would spend a lot of time reading pages of info? Who would spend a lot of time understanding complicated facts and figures? Well, some would still do that, but most people won't. It seems like a waste of time when you can actually get info in a simpler manner through infographics. So do away with those boring presentations and give them more interesting appeal using an infographic. Even those who are oblivious of important facts will have that interest to look at infographics. Its design will fascinate everyone, even those who do not have interest in that information, which could be some of your students. Since the internet is available for everyone, you can easily see infographics. In fact, if you just look for infographics using, like, let's say you just Google it, a certain type of infographic, you'll get tons and tons, and especially if you look just in the under images, because infographics are saved as an image file, usually a JPEG. You'll be able to find them as images. Due to its unique way of presenting information and its clear manner of arrangement, it can easily persuade the readers. It is more convincing and influencing. The readers would less likely doubt the data they are seeing. Of course, no one would waste effort in designing such a great infographic to merely lie about information. That's not always true, but again, people do take a lot of time creating infographics, and they're meant to educate and inform and possibly provoke sometimes. The use of bright colors, graphs, and shapes make it easy for infographics to be remembered by people. Remember that images are easier to commit in one's memory. That is why, excuse me, television advertisements are effective because of the use of visual presentation. Infographics give a similar effect. And our last one, the clear data representation can relay information well. There would be lesser misinterpretations in using infographics because of the good presentation of facts and figures. These things are oftentimes misleading, but infographics can get straight to the point. They're very important. Designers see that they can really create infographics without causing misinterpretation because they take careful attention to plan the whole path and the look of the infographic. What can I do with them? So rather than giving students assignments with answers that reside in the teacher's edition, innovative educators are using infographics like this, which require students to use critical thinking skills and don't necessarily have just one right answer. Some educators are not only using these as tools to help stimulate critical thinking and discussion. So take a look at this one, and it's showing the English speaking versus the economy. So the countries that speak English versus what their economy looks like, and taking it further with some questions. And you can explore this on this link through the presentation on more ideas. In the most general sense, infographics can be a great tool to use in order to differentiate instruction in your classroom. By including textual information, diagrams, and images, they can effectively meet the needs of both linguistic and visual learners. The text that is included is often written at a simpler reading level than standard formal text on the same subject. Infographics can be an easy way to present information to students who are experiencing difficulties when it comes to literacy skills. Depending on the graphic, information is sometimes visually displayed in order to show connections between different topics, which can assist students in making connections between the concepts. And this link here, I'm going to open it up, but you can go ahead and look at it when the video stops. It's easier if you can manipulate it and look closer at the different parts. As an activating tool, infographics can help you introduce a new unit or a specific lesson. Most good quality infographics do a great job of answering an interesting question or summarizing a specific topic. For example, infographics may be titled Hurricane Irene, Overwhelming or Overblown, or Anatomy of a Hurricane. The first immediately attracts interest to the topic, and the second provides a good overview of the topic in general. Either type of infographic could be used to activate students' prior knowledge, stimulate interest, and or provide a framework for future learning. So let's Okay, so here's the hurricane one. So there's that one. This one has a little more information on what a hurricane is exactly. Okay. Students can create an infographic project. There's so many online tools out there that allow students to create their own infographics. These could be used by students to create their own as summative projects. They require the creator to summarize information and pick out the most important concepts. And because of that, they require students to fully comprehend the subject, apply their knowledge, classify it appropriately, create diagrams, and evaluate what information is the most important in order to get their point across. Students won't even realize they're hitting all the levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Instead of writing a traditional paper on the War of 1812's effects on multiculturalism, why not give students the option of creating an infographic on the same topic? So here's one on war and peace. I know as a teacher I would much rather look at something like this as an assignment that a student has done instead of reading a paper. So it's a win-win. And they have to know a lot more about the subject. Again, you want to think about what are the assignments you're giving. If you just assign a paper, it's pretty easy for students to just go online and copy and paste stuff from text. This is much more advanced, higher level thinking. And they're having to distill the information that is most important. And it also brings in creativity. A good quality infographic will provide referencing and a list of appropriate sources near the bottom of the image. And let's take a look at this one. Okay, so this one's on Twitter. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom, see how the sources are listed there. And again, there's not 100 of them. So this also helps students when they're required to list their sources, also helps them be critical in the sources they are picking. And this one, let me show you another one on Twitter. Not all of them do include their sources. So like this one, see, it just has who designed it. But it would be a good practice for kids to include their sources, not only for the images, but also for the information. Where can I find them? There are so many. It's just amazing. And hopefully you'll love them as much as I do, and you'll be so excited about all the different places you can find infographics. This one right here is the New York Times actually has a lot of stuff for educators. And this one is actually using infographics. And they have a whole series of lessons with using infographics. So here's one on the Ebola outbreak. And they give you the infographic, and then they also give you questions. So you can explore that more in depth when you have your exploration time. Live binders. Sorry, I went ahead too far. Live binders is a good place to search for them. If you just Google your topic and infographics, you'll have a lot to choose from. Let me just go into Google and I'll show you. And remember, images are probably your best starting point because infographics are saved as images. So let's say Civil War infographics. Aha, so look at all the ones that pop up. Depending on the specific subtopic of Civil War. Here's one on their uniforms. You can get a lot of different ones, and let's say you pick about 10 different infographics, and for the lesson for the day you hand them out to students, so you're printing them out, and have them look at the infographic and give them a certain amount of time and have them share with the class what they've learned about that topic. I like that one. It's a nice visual. So again, this one's actually one of those ones that's a visual metaphor where the image, the way the image is presented actually represents something. So each piece of the money is divided up so I can remember that it's a percentage. Okay, so that was just Googling it. Pinterest, you'll find a ton of them. If you just search for infographics, and then you can also put in, I'm just going to scroll down here. I'm just going to see which ones come up. That's an interesting one on water. They're just really good provocative type of media where you're presented with it and you can say, okay, what does this mean to you? And it's great for students to really be able to have access to these. What I like about them, and you do have to, if you want to really use these a lot, you'll need to invest in some color ink for your printer because you can print them out and have them, it takes like 4 or 5 pieces of paper to print out and glue, tape together, but they're really interesting. Cool Infographics. This is a website solely dedicated to infographics. And they usually have a different one every day. And you can also search for ones that you're interested in to see what they have. And then again, there's other things you can do on the website if you wanted to order posters and whatnot. And then the daily infographic. All right, so even some tough topics here. And remember that not all of these are education related. There are many that are. And mostly it's about current events, marketers using it for their products. Okay, and then our next step then would be, how do I make one? I really like this little infographic here, even though there's not really any pictures on it. But this is from Kathy Schrock, and those are some really good steps for you to consider and how you go about creating one. Same with this one. This shows an actual, the parts of an infographic. So we have the three major parts: the visual, the content, and the knowledge. And the knowledge comes from the overall message of the infographic, not just the different facts or the text and the statistics and so on. And there are a few other links that you'll find on the Pinterest board. How to create a powerful visual. Okay, so that's where I got those steps from. And then another one. Okay, so again, the whole workflow of creating one. So you can take a look at those a little more closely when the video stops, and then come back to the webinar. Okay, so there's different types of infographic. A two-level deep infographic is much more advanced than just a simple one. And I think I went too far. So let's start with the simple. It's barely skimming and brushing through the three major parts. It's a visual. It has a common design throughout. It does have some content to complement the visual. It imparts knowledge based on the visuals and content. But the one-level design may incorporate one or two subparts from visuals and content, but the representation is very basic. And then we go to the two-level deep. This type of infographic has a thematic design to it. It has reference icons to condense and compact a lot of data visually. Usually color coding becomes a must in this type of infographic because visually separating content via color becomes key in relaying information. Within the realm of content, the two-level infographic not only presents factual data but also makes references and calls on statistics very regularly. There may be additional snippets of data in the form of notes. With the increase in the amount of data as the design goes two-level deep, it becomes very essential to utilize all the graphical resources available to you in the form of icons, image holders, shape groupings, color, and time frame integration. So it's much more in-depth. Five essential steps to a good infographic. This is a nice, simple way to begin creating one. So the first step, you approach it as you would any other form of design. You put together a skeleton of words and arrows, grouping relevant data together, visualizing the flow of information using flowcharts. Because infographics are usually complex, flowcharts will simplify the process and connect everything precisely for you. Number two, a color scheme is very important to convey a wide array of messages while keeping the reader confined inside the infographic. With huge and complex infographics, readers will become quickly confused and their perceptions will be scattered all over the place if they don't have colors tying down their thoughts visually. You can have 2, 3, or 10 colors, but assigning them before you begin designing will be the most important thing you do. Number 3, there are two kinds of graphics in an infographic: the theme and the reference. The theme graphic is the defining visual of the design and is usually always included in the infographic, except when the infographic is more statistic based. Choosing the right theme graphic will tell your reader at a glance what knowledge you wish to share. A reference graphic is not mandatory in the design. They're usually icons used as visual pointers to avoid cluttering up the design when a lot of content needs to be represented. They are brilliantly capable of making numerous references using the same instance. Sometimes words aren't even necessary if powerful reference icons are used. A practice more and more designers are using in a bid to make their infographics as word-free as possible. So you really do want to try to limit how much text you have on an infographic. And it also goes without saying that all infographics must be thoroughly researched and the data presented must be backed up by established facts. While doing that, you will inevitably end up with piles of data. Sifting through that, you must condense and decide what data is the most relevant and how you're going to present it. The ratio of data to the graphics works best if it is 1-to-1. Another extremely important point to remember is demographics. Who is going to be using your infographic? Are they regular office-going people who are used to stare at suburban train line infographics, or tourists from a non-English speaking country, or 10-year-old impressionable kids who are being taught to recognize bullying and raise a voice against it? Depending on the demographics, your infographics will accordingly reflect colors, icons, knowledge, and complexity. So thinking in terms of students who are trying to create something for a particular audience as part of skilled communication, that goes into the design itself. So they need to consider all of those pieces. And as a teacher, you need to consider your students and what interests them. So some really cool tools that you can use. You've seen a few examples of infographics created with PictoChart. This one's pretty easy to use. Okay, so they have some samples here. This is a free tool. Okay, so it takes you through step by step. And there are all the different things that you can do. You can change the background, you can add text, you can upload images, and look at images that are already inside the software. Okay, so just tons. And you have your editing tools up here and ways to share it. Infogram is another interesting tool. It is free. So I'm just going to show you the Getting Started page. If you are using Google Apps for Education, they can log in using, if you create an account for your entire class, you can have them log in that way. And then Easily. And these have some great templates as well that you can just plug in your own information as you get started. Okay, again, a free tool. All right, if you have an iPad, there's some great apps available. And I'm going to briefly show you, I'm going to click on each one and show you what it looks like in the iTunes store. And then I have several of these on my iPad as well. So we'll click on there and you can see Infotacular. What's neat about this one is you can actually store infographics that you like. And so if you find a bunch that you like and you want students to view them, it has a kiosk feature, and I'll show you that when I get the iPad connected. This one's Infographics Hub. Now several of these are just for finding infographics, and they're usually categorized. So that one is Infographics Hub. Info.graphics. Again, finding them. And then there's a couple. This one is an interesting one. This one actually is a lesson in infographics. So it really walks you through different examples and how it helps you learn. This one is just a reference one where you can explore different statistics of the United States. So that one's much better when we can see it in action on the iPad. Let me close a few of these links here. And then some tools to create them. This one is Graphiolite. Actually, I think this is the full version that I paid for. Not cheap, it was $9, but pretty robust in the things that it offers. They have different features. Okay, you see all those. You can insert PDF, images, you can make org charts, you can do mind mapping, you can record audio. This one is an interesting one if you are on social media at all. You'll see what I mean. You can create your own. Kids will love this one. And then this last one, iVisual Info Touch Lite. And this one's more shapes and text. All right, so let's take a look at how they look on the iPad. Let me scoot this over. Okay. So here's Infotacular. And sorry that it's sideways, but this one actually allows you to launch, there we go, to launch a kiosk where you can look at them on the iPad itself. So if you do find a bunch that you like that are specific to your content area, I would recommend using this one. Just because how it displays them so easily. Okay, so that is Infotacular. Okay, and there's iVisual Info Touch. Oh, doesn't want to play it. That's all right. We'll go on to the next one. There's the e-learning. And you can just pick, you can pick one of them to look at. This is more in general. Here's the stats of the union, which is really interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it and open up the demographics. And let's say I want to look at births. And as I click through, the colors change. So the blue is the very low and the low numbers of low birth weight. And then the green is high numbers of low birth weight. Premature births, births under age 18, mothers under age 18, I should think that's what that means. Okay, let's look at diseases. So that first one is E. coli, so low number, and then I can enlarge it. There's a high number right here, 109 cases reported there. That was in, it did tell me where it was. Menard County, Illinois. Measles. Okay, so it tells you a lot of interesting things. So this one's really just an interactive infographic. And then I'll show you one more. Okay, so if you're on social media at all, you recognize some of these. And this is where people can make them. I've seen the Yoda one several times. So that's a very small kind of infographic. And this one I can go in and pick. And this is about education in general. Okay. All right, well, now that you've seen about what they are and where can you find them, how can you make them, why would you use them in the classroom, I want you to think about those 6 dimensions and which 3 are very well supported by the use of infographics. Did you get them right? Knowledge construction is the number 1. You are trying to help students build knowledge. And so even by looking at infographics, they are having to make sense of what they're seeing. If they're creating an infographic, they're really having to do a lot of analyzing and synthesizing to be able to put in the most important information and the graphics that would go with it. using technology for learning. We absolutely have to have the technology to be able to access this type of learning. We cannot get the infographics usually anywhere except for the internet, unless you've seen them printed out and you take that printout. But it really does support knowledge construction to qualify, so another higher level of using technology for learning. And again, if they're creating one, they're going to have to use technology to create it. And then skill communication. Again, that particular audience is very important, especially when designing it. They absolutely have to have supporting evidence to any of the facts that they put on there. It is multimodal because it's all text and images. And some of them, as you saw, if they're interactive or if they could also incorporate audio or video. And it requires extended communication because it's tying a bunch of information together so that it's connected idea or theme or thesis. It's not just one small bit of information. Lots more ideas are on the Pinterest board. So when you have your exploration time, make sure you check out the Pinterest board and I'll show you what it looks like. And Pinterest is excellent as far as displaying infographics. I just love how they look. Very visually appealing, and you can find the ones you like and click on them. And then click on them again and it'll take you to the site where it lives. Pinterest is called a social bookmarking tool, and it's bookmarking a website using an image found on the website. Okay, so a lot more resources there. And our disclaimer, with any Web 2.0 tool or online resource that you are having kids either create an account or if you are displaying their work online, please make sure that you read the terms of service for any of the tools you're using or having students use. If you're not having students use it, you don't have to be too concerned, but the goal is to have students use the tool. So make sure that you read the terms of service found on each website. Also be familiar with the different laws that protect student data and privacy, and get administrator support and parent permission. If you want to learn more about being a 21st century educator, you can visit our website for the different classes and resources that we offer at wcsd21.com. You can follow us on Twitter at WCSD21. And then, of course, our Pinterest boards are always updated with new resources for you to use. Thank you very much for your attention and participation in this webinar. You can email me there at tgraves@washoeschools.net. Please follow me on Twitter at nvtaragraves, and there is the link to the slideshow at the bottom. Have a good evening.